Mmm, mmm, mmm. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is the first sort of proper video that I've stuck up. Um, that was Robinson's blackcurrant and cherry squash with some ice cubes. Don Lawson always goes on about how much coffee he drinks when he does these things. I'm going to be fueled by Robinson's, so get the old sponsorship up across the thing. Um, so I did a little intro video, which you can see underneath here to this, which I said I will probably do lots of reviews and gig reviews and stuff now, just for something to do with me, because I thought maybe people might be interested. We'll see, won't we? Time will tell. But I'm going to start off by doing a review of this. This is the new album. It's called Freedom by the band Refused. Now, if you know anything about me, and I assume since it's so early on, you probably do, because why would you watch it if you didn't? You might just really like Refused, and then you don't need me to tell you about Refused because you know about Refused. But I love Refused essentially. When The Shape of Punk to Come came out in 1997, that basically completely changed the type of music that I listened to. I've said it loads of times before. I went back and threw away like half my record collection. It opened my mind up to so many different types of music that I'd never really experienced or heard of before. I think were I to pinpoint one album in my lifetime which has been the most influential record of my life, I think that would be it. And it's one of the best albums ever made. Like, I make no bones about saying that. People say like, oh, it's the greatest album ever. It very rarely is. But I'm talking like, this is as good a record, The Shape of Punk to Come, as Bitches Brew, Definitely Maybe, OK Computer, Appetite for Destruction, Master of Puppets, Rain in Blood, London Calling, Funhouse, Sergeant Pepper's, whatever record from the past you want to dig up as the greatest record ever made, that album compares to it. The difference between that record and the records that I've just mentioned is that none of those bands split up after being completely ignored after they released the album, whereas Refused did. The last time Refused played England, or the UK I should say, in their original incarnation, they did a gig in Stoke in front of about 10 people in a pub. Apparently only 6 people were even paying attention to them. So they split up after releasing this amazing record that influenced so many other bands. I mean, I'm not even going to go into a list of how many bands that record has influenced. It's uncalculable about how many people have been influenced by that album in the last 15 years, nearly 20 years now. Still to this day, it just does not date as a record. It's incredible. And inevitably in 2012, when people caught up with what they were trying to do, Refused reformed, which led to a lot of problems from certain corners. You seem to be falling into two camps when it comes to the Refused reformation. You were either excited about it because you've never seen it before, that would be me, or you were appalled that they said, yeah, we said back in the day that we were never going to reform, and now here they are reforming. Well, my thought about that is this: is when you've influenced that many bands and that type of music that you've basically invented has gone to become this huge genre of music as the type of punk rock and hardcore that Refused were playing then. You could never have dreamed of making a career out of that back in the day, whereas now you can. So there are a lot of bands who are making careers of the things that Refused did, and I don't see why Refused shouldn't get a piece of that pie, frankly. That's a more kind of grotesque reason for me not being that fussed about them reforming. The other reason is this: is when they split up, as I said, no one cared about them at all. No one ever could have imagined that 15 years later, people would be clamoring over themselves to book that band, obsessing about that band. I mean, they literally are playing to 2, 3, 4,000 times more people than they would have been in their original incarnation. You know, who could have ever predicted that? No one. You know, it would be like, to give you a sort of comparable thing, right? I used to make a pretty flimsy living out of doing stand-up comedy. You can see the videos that aren't very good below on this channel. I probably don't, but I did anyway. That's what I did. And you know, I never got on Mock the Week or 8 out of 10 Cats or Michael McIntyre's Comedy Roadshow. And if in 15 years' time someone turned around to me and said, "Do you want to do stand-up again?" But you'll be on live at the Apollo and stand up for the, and you'll be doing these huge, you'll be playing the Pleasance at the Edinburgh Festival. I couldn't turn around and go, no. If you ask me right now, I'd say, no, I don't want to have absolutely no intention of doing it ever again whatsoever, because it's standing in a pub in front of 15 people and struggling to want to get through 10 minutes of things that people don't care. Like, no one cares about me. No one cares about what I was saying. Fuck it. Why would I want to do that again? Why? But if in 15 years' time, the videos that are on this YouTube channel became an internet sensation, and I could play in front of 4,000 people, well then, that might change my mind. Do you know what I mean? But who would ever think that's going to happen? Nobody. It was totally unpredictable, totally unbelievable, totally fantastical that could ever possibly, feasibly happen. But to refuse it's happened. So they're back, and if you're going to reform, be good, And having seen Refused 3 times, twice at the London Forum and once at the Download Festival since they've been back, I can honestly say those 2 gigs at the London Forum are the 2 best gigs, particularly the second night. The second night is the best gig I've ever been to in my entire life. It was unbelievable. So if they can back it up, I have no problem with it. Of course, I thought they'd do a tour, let everyone see the band that they want to see, and then they disappear. They haven't done that. They've decided to carry on. They've decided to release this new album. So I guess this is where the true reappraisal of the return of Refused should start, really, because bands always want to be judged on where they are right now. It's not about doing the cabaret circuit. You are judged on the material that you're creating now, And this album is, well, okay, so here's the thing. What doesn't get talked about a lot is what happens in those intervening years between Refused splitting up and reforming again. And the different members went off and did lots of different things. But Dennis, the lead singer, formed a band pretty much immediately after Refused called the International Noise Conspiracy, who were a kind of garage punk, straight down the line rock and roll band. A fun, good time, catchy party band. And actually, they achieved a lot more success than Refused did the original time around. They were going to be headlining the Astoria with the Hives supporting them. But actually, the Hives got so big so quickly that they had to swap them. But anyway, I always thought they were better than the Hives. Survival Sickness, their debut album, is a great record. New Morning Changing Weather, their second album, is really, really brilliant. Really underrated. A really great record. Some absolutely stonking tunes on it. A little bit of Stax era soul. Some parping horns, a bit almost like at times a bit like Rocket from the Crypt. A lot of political sloganeering, and the point is, Dennis said that he felt like he was wasting his time with the political message of Refused while framing it in such an abrasive type of music they were playing. Like I said, you couldn't make a living at playing hardcore punk back in those days. So why not do something catchier? Why not do a straight down the line rock and roll band that can appeal to lots of people if you have that political message? It's a weird dichotomy. It's, 2 parallel opposing ideas trying to shoehorn themselves together. It's not the easiest thing to do, but at points, the International Noise Conspiracy did it very well. So they're a great, fun live band. But I do think a lot of their political ideas were lost. A lot more than Refused were, but then they were playing to a lot more people. So anyway, that was what they did. The reason I brought that band up is because when I first put this album on, the first track's called Electra. You might have heard it. I would have imagined you've heard this album by now. But the first track, Electra, was the first track to be released from this record, and it is a typical Refused hardcore, screaming, angry, stomping banger. It's great. It's got all the stop-start staccato guitar riffs. It's got a really impassioned, roaring vocal performance. It's got everything that you want from old school Refused. It's not quite up there with Shape of Punk to Come, but it's close enough to the album previous to that called Songs to Fan of Flames of Discontent, which again, a lot of people go, oh, Refused only got one album. No, The album before that as well is a great record, a great hardcore record. Of course, because The Shape of Punk is so good, it doesn't hold up as well, but it holds up better than most of the albums around that time. It's a really good record. But and at that level, I think they're punching in that weight category essentially. Um, After that, the first half of this album, I must admit, I found quite disappointing. Um, what I found disappointing about it is there's a lot of ideas here, and for a band so ingenious, you would always expect them to have lots of quite out there ideas, and you will find them on this album. Whether or not they work is a different story altogether. The second track, which is called, hold on, excuse me, I'm getting really old and I can't remember the names of songs anymore. Old Friends, New War, which starts with this kind of almost like something you would imagine Kanye West to have. It's kind of like staccato, um, lots of vocal effects and this almost hip hop delivery, a cappella, but really processed. And then this guitar riff comes in, just kind of a rock guitar riff as opposed to sort of a punky guitar riff with quite a lot of bounce to it. It's okay. Like I was kind of like, yeah, it's okay, but it's quite mid-paced, mid-tempo. It doesn't really go anywhere. The third track's called Dawkins Christ, which is a really appalling name um, for a song, and features some quite hackneyed lyrics about the notions of religion and a lot of quite empty sloganeering. The song itself it doesn't really go anywhere. Again, Franken Freak, the fourth track, starts with a choral group of school children, which, if you've listened to Machine Head recently, you'll know is never the best of ideas. It's less Pink Floyd and more Machine Head. Again, there's a bit where he goes, where the kids kind of go murder, 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 kill, 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 and that made me kind of go, ooh, it's not great. It's not great. So at this point, I'm sort of thinking, oh, Refused, they fucked up. So the first four, apart from Electra, 4 tracks in, I was thinking, oh my god, this is bad. This is going to be one of those disastrous returns. And the anger, the passion, that was the thing that was lacking. The ingenuity of old was still there, but it was delivered in a way which seemed forced and a little bit false and a little bit like, oh, we're Refused and we're trying to climb the summit of this amazing record that we made 15 years ago, and we have to do all these different things because people will expect us to reinvent ourselves with every song, and it was kind of incoherent and a little bit very disappointing. The fifth track's called Thought Is Blood, which is kind of again the heaviest song up to that point, but nothing really that you couldn't hear on 1,000 different hardcore albums released in the last 5 years or so. Halfway through the record, I wasn't feeling it so much. But then, the second half of the album, it really improves. And what improves about it, I think, is Refused going, well, there is no point us trying to top The Shape of Punk to Come. We'll kind of knock some of the more wacky ideas on the head and really just not even make a hardcore album, make a rock and roll album, with some really good songs. And War on the Palaces, that really reminds me of the International Noise Conspiracy. It's a kind of garage rock with the horns, with the kind of soul era. It's got a real kind of lucid groove to it. I think it's great. I think that is a great song. And that was the first time that I went, oh, I can actually imagine this coming on live and really, really enjoying it. And it reminds me of the song Something Bigger, Something Longer Chains. I can't remember the name of the title of the track. But it's from the International Noise Conspiracy second album. And from then on in, they do just kind of go, well, let's just do that thing that Dennis, you used to be so good at doing, which is writing these really cool rock songs. And I have no problem with that because I would rather a band were honest and did things that came naturally to them than try to force out this masterpiece of eclecticism which doesn't really exist within their psyche. I felt like Refused were overthinking the first half of the album. I think the second half of the album is very good. The track after that was Servants of Death is really good as well. that's got almost kind of like a Rage Against the Machine guitar part to it with these kind of doo-wop vocals. There's one, I think it's 366, which just sounds a little bit like Liberation Frequencies from Shape of Punk to Come, which, is cool with me. And there's a slow one at the end, Useless Europeans, which has got a nod to Rather Be Dead from the opening track on Songs to Fan the Flames of Discontent. It's got a nod to that for the kind of the refused nerds like myself, but then goes into a really quite melodic, singy, just sort of slow burning, almost. I don't want to use the word ballad because then you're going to expect it to be like fucking, Foreigner or something, but which it's not. But it's just, emotive, I guess is the word, without being emo. It's good. Overall, they totally won me over in the second half of the album. First half, this would have made a brilliant EP. Unfortunately, the standard that they set with The Shape of Punk to Come is so high that they will never ever top that. And it's stupid of them to have even attempted it. And I feel like maybe they kind of went to attempt it, even though they didn't really want to. And then halfway through they went, let's just make an album of good songs. And they made an album of, I'd say, 7 of the songs on this album are good or okay. I'd say 2 are okay, 5 are good, 3 are not so good. But it's the New Refused album. And if it had come out under a name of a different band that you've never heard of before, and this is their debut album, you'd probably go, this band has a hell of a lot of promise. And just maybe not quite harnessed their ideas yet. But it's not their debut album. It's fucking Refused. So it's tough. Anyway, I would give this album the same as Metal Hammer gave it. I would give this a 7 out of 10. And it's been very difficult for me not to be biased about this record, but I've tried not to be as honest as possible. What did you think? Let me know. If you liked it, then say. If you hated it, then say. If you haven't heard it yet, and this has made you want to listen to certain parts of it, then let me know in the old comment section down there. And if there's any albums you'd like me to talk about or review, or if you have any questions, I can do a video on whatever, then I might just bloody do that. I might do that. But right now, I have another sippity dip of Robinson's, and I'll see you cunts later. Bye, cunts.